Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Daily Fix. I am your usual host and presenter, Advocate Tulo Hoyan. There's a disturbing trend that runs right through the Meyiwa trial. And what is this trend? You might be wondering. A trend that I see right from the time the investigation got underway is that following the differences that emerged from the two sets of investigators. Remember, there were those investigators who pursued 636, that there were intruders into that house, and others pursued the narrative that there were no intruders into that house. It would appear that that is where all hell broke loose. In other words, all the people who have been associated with the no intruder theory, the theory of 375, have had their lives turned upside down. Perhaps because those who are pushing the narrative of 636 don't want to be exposed, don't want to be exposed and be seen to be hiding the real perpetrators behind the killing of Senzo Meyiwa. It all started with Malesela Tefo telling the Chifuwa Maumela court that there were no intruders into that house and that a witness would come forward to testify that he had actually secured a statement, and that statement would show that there were no intruders into that house. That witness, or the person who Tifu was talking about, who would bring that witness, was Brigadier Ndlovu. And Brigadier Ndlovu, as we all know, is no longer alive. He was killed under those suspicious circumstances, which to this day are still not unsolved. The investigation into Brigadier Ndlovu's death continues and will probably continue forever. Crime intelligence does not seem to have prioritized the investigation into the death of Brigadier Ndlovu. In spite of the overwhelming evidence, mostly circumstantial, that clearly points to the motive behind this killing. Now, to complicate it all, or to throw, to throw petrol into a raging fire, General Ndlovu's wife was also killed. And we all know that he wanted a post-mortem to be undertaken on her husband's corpse to determine the cause of death, because she was just not convinced that it was a natural death. That inquiry, that post-mortem that she wanted undertaken, has never taken place. and will probably never take place unless some action is taken by some other parties who have no interest in docket 3636. The death of Brigadier Ndubu's wife itself, coming so soon after the death of Ndubu himself, will forever be a never-ending investigation, in spite of the overwhelming evidence of the overwhelming circumstantial evidence that it was probably linked, to her probing into the circumstances surrounding the death of her husband. So everybody who's been associated with this trial has had their lives turned upside down. And let's look at Melissa Latif. You'll recall during the Chifiwa Maumela trial how Melissa Latif was arrested in court. That courtroom arrest in front of TV cameras, manhandled like an ordinary criminal. I recall one of the arresting officers shouting to the other officer, "Give him a charge, give him a charge." They were simply bundled out of that courtroom. He was never given a charge. And as they arrested him, Tefo kept on saying, "Why arresting me? Why arresting me?" But the procedure relating to arrests was not followed. So he was bundled out of that courtroom in the full glare of television cameras and for everybody to see. Ever since that time, it has always been downhill for Tefo. He was then charged and spent well over a year in prison. The real reason? It all goes back to his disclosures that the narrative of 636 was a fake narrative and that there'd be no intruders into that house. So there are many players in the sense of Meyiwa investigation, whose lives have been turned upside down. We also have some other people, not quite too directly associated with the trial, who are facing constant threats all the time. Patricia Mashal is a case in point. She is now exposing a lot around the T4, around the Meyiwa trial. In a recent video that she did on social media, she was questioning the whole issue of how Mjiyako came to be Bongani Ntandi's lawyer. Because Ntandi has this own Mjiyako. So people like Patricia Mashal's lives also are in danger. The threat levels against them are very high. And the reason being, they are pushing the narrative of 375. So it would appear that those behind 636 will stop at nothing to ensure that the trial that we are seeing unfold in the Pretoria High Court runs its course, and we probably see the 5 men sitting in that dock get convicted. But the questions will always remain. The questions always remain. Interestingly, Tifo's, arrest, nobody said anything about it. Judge Shifua Maumela, they simply said nothing about it. He just continued with the trial as if nothing had happened. But be that as it may, we have seen a lot of twists and turns in this trial, and we are still perhaps going to see more. AfriForum itself, for one, has said the prosecution has got a hidden agenda. The prosecution has got a hidden agenda. And what this hidden agenda is will certainly unfold in that court, or is unfolding in that court. The news that I want to bring you this morning, the analysis that I want to bring you this morning is everyone who's associated with that child in one way or another has had their lives turned upside down. Having said that, let me thank you for watching this video. Let me also thank you for all the subscriptions that I'm seeing. Please like and share these videos. Don't skip the adverts, and have a nice day.